Alright, guys. My gosh. Welcoming myself back to this podcast. I hope my voice sounds alright. It is 8:06 a.m. right now. Thursday morning, April 6th. I'm tired. I was sick since about March 30th. I think I mentioned it though. I can't remember if I mentioned that I was going through some really old music, like guitar tab printouts and some sheet music from like 2003 and so. And yeah, I was going through all that, and I just assumed it was the dust that was like a little kicked up, and kind of maybe I got a sinus infection or something. I don't really know. Maybe it's possible for that to turn into like a cold. I don't really know. I'm not familiar, but yeah, I'm gonna try to be back on here. Today's gonna be my first day. I'm gonna try to have a half day. So I'm gonna push till lunch and see how I feel. But yeah, I missed a couple days. Guys, I tried to do a blog post. I started it Tuesday. I was like, I said to myself, because I did read the days. Let me see. I have it written down. Bear with me while I find this thing. I did have it with me. The book and Aina's Keys, by Aina Brion, and I tried to write this article about mental health frequencies. It's like it's about half written. I didn't edit it. I haven't added pictures. I haven't done the meta tag situations. Probably would add a link or two more than what I already have on here. But I have the categories written out, and it was basically from April 1 through 4. That was days 18 through 21, and today I'm kind of recording also days 22 and 23. Today's day 23. So I'm going to record up to day 23. But, yeah, basically, those other days, the book continues this conversation about, frequencies and kind of patterns that we have, and, different patterns that we fall into, especially socially, how that can kind of be impacting, how different patterns are kind of impacting on on our frequencies, or how we might choose different patterns of interactions based on the frequency that we're in. So that's kind of one example that they use, that she uses, and also this concept of fear, and how fear can hold people back, definitely, but it comes from a certain frequency as well. And a lot of times, people don't really notice that, that feeling of fear can be shifted. Sorry if I clear my throat a lot. Sorry if I'm coughing. I'm just gonna try and get through recording this. But yeah, like when it comes to fear, a lot of times we might think about like stuff that we're like, there's stuff to be rightfully fearful of, right? So for example, you know, okay, like, okay, I'm gonna use a silly example. So I've been spending a lot of time on Instagram, and there's this video, this clip of this little girl. I think she's probably like, she's got to be like 2 or 3 years old, and she goes over near, it's like a zoo. I guess it's like a zoo or something, and she goes over near this like, they're in this area where there's like, those kind of tanks. It's like a glass see-through walkway. It's like you can still see through, but there's like water, and I think there's like tigers. I don't know if it's lions or tigers, like on these like rocks, like in the distance, a little bit in the distance. But there was like a pool of water, and there's like a big glass, like like a like the walking path is like nearby the glass. So basically it goes walking path, glass, kind of window slash wall barrier. Then there's like this pool of water, and on the other side of this pool of water there's like these rocks where the animals are there. It's like a zoo, they're contained. And so this little baby girl is like walking over, just kind of like nonchalantly, just like walking over, and her parents or somebody are like filming her. And there's a point where one of the giant animals, is like a lion or something, decides, I don't know if it was trying to catch a fish or if it was just like jumping towards her, but it jumps from the rock all the way towards where the little girl is, and the animal kind of hits the window. I don't know if it was catching a fish that was right there or if it was jumping at her. I couldn't really tell because it looked like it had something in its mouth after, but I couldn't fully tell if it was like part of its mouth or not. I couldn't really tell if it had like caught a fish or if it was like jumping like as if it was, if that window wasn't there, it was gonna attack her. But this little girl turns around like a second after, she probably hears the noise, turns around and sees this gigantic like animal on the other side of this glass, and goes like running like in the opposite direction, like away from it. She's not like trying to pet it through the glass or anything. I mean, that is a good natural response of fear, right? Like, oh shoot, there's this gigantic like animal that's like 3-4 times my size, and it's right next to me, even though there's like a glass barrier there. It's like she knew that thing is close, and she ran away. And like, I don't mean to laugh at her fear, but it's just like, that's kind of, a natural and maybe survival type of fear. But the issue is that our brains try so hard to protect us that, I think Jamie Messina was mentioning this in one of her Instagram posts too, that like the brain tries to, focus on all the possible negative options of things that could happen, and if we let it do that, it will keep on going that direction. And so that's one thing to kind of keep in mind, that that's kind of how the brain operates. It's just like, let's just go in this negative direction and keep on going. And yeah, so that's kind of what is kind of going on with things, with people. It's like, it feels almost as if, oh, there's like a lion or a tiger right next to me. It's like, but that's not really the case. Sometimes it's not like really an actual life or death or like safety type of danger. It's just like, a lot of times we do have to unfortunately put ourselves out there, with the risk of, you know, rejection or pain or fear or emotional hurt, sadness, disappointment, you know. I mean, take for example, right? I've been getting over this cold, right? And I've been basically chilling in my room, right? Like trying not to get my folks sick, trying not to go out in public. You know, I haven't left the house since Sunday, and I knew I was a little ill the other days, but you know, I wasn't really like coughing, so I was kind of like, maybe it's just a sinus thing. But it didn't kick in till maybe Sunday morning after the rave. I started actually feeling like, ooh, this isn't a good way to feel. But yeah, I wasn't feeling great. I basically was like, try to sleep it off. Um, I was having a couple meals a day. My appetite's low. Like, I don't need to talk about all the symptoms, but basically, what I'm trying to get at is, in a way, even though I was sick, I was protected from everything. Like, I didn't interact with anybody. I didn't leave the house. I didn't do anything. I didn't go anywhere. Um, and I had a couple social interactions with my folks, and that was basically it. And I was just like, you know, in my head, I'm thinking, you know, I'm kind of protected here. You know, I'm pretty protected because, like, the reason why I'm protected is because I'm not going anywhere. And I have every excuse in the world to not do anything because I'm sick. So the more I thought about it, I was like, you know, it's kind of an example of, you know, you can stay away from everything, you know, and avoid all the things. You know, I was like, well, I can't study because my brain isn't like operating properly. Like, my memory was not feeling good. Like, my energy wasn't feeling good. I was trying to write that blog article, and after like, I took like 2 hours one day and like maybe close to an hour yesterday, and I was like, dude, like, why is this taking so long? Like, I just couldn't think, like, the things I was writing, and I'm gonna leave it as it is, but the things that I was writing, I was like, I don't feel like I'm doing a very good job at like expressing what I'm trying to say, and my sleep's been off a couple days. But in the midst of, you know, everything not feeling like perfect, um, like on a social level, overall, I was in a way pretty protected, right? It was like, okay, if there's someone I don't want to talk to or don't want to be around, I have this excuse that I'm sick and I don't have to interact with anybody. Um, and you know, I still noticed, like, because there were kind of a little bit of potential for social interactions that kind of came up, that I was like, oh, like, I don't have to do this because I'm sick, you know. And I mean, it's the truth, though. It's the truth. I wasn't trying to avoid anybody like that. Like, there were some people, one person I was trying to avoid, um, just because of some toxic history. It wasn't anybody that I talked to on a regular basis, but somebody came around that was like wanting to interact, and I was kind of like, well, I kind of can't because I'm sick, or like I just mentioned, sorry, I haven't been, you know, interacting because I'm sick. I'm trying not to get people sick. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, that's the best excuse ever, you know, because I'm like, I don't have to talk to this person in person. I don't have to see them. You know, I can spend multiple days avoiding them. But also, it's not like it wasn't on my mind. Like, we did have some slight interactions, and I was thinking about those, and I was just like, goodness, um, you know, like, and so I was kind of like, okay, so that doesn't really work. You know, just avoiding it doesn't work, because then you're still going to think about it. You know, if you're trying to apply for jobs or trying to apply for schools or trying to do like one of those assessments for yourself to see what field you want to be in next, or if you're trying to do some kind of spiritual healing or physical healing or whatever, and kind of like on the fence about things and avoiding it, I mean, you're still going to spend a lot of time thinking about it if it's really something you want to do, and if it's really something that's important to you. You know, even if you're avoiding it, you're still going to think about it a lot. And so it's kind of like, that's one thing that I kind of noticed, that I was like, okay, like, we can only protect ourselves out of fear for so long with certain stuff. It's like eventually you kind of got to get a move on, or make this choice between going down a path towards progress or staying on the current path where there might be no progress, or very, 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 very slow to limited progress, or going down backwards, back down the path, and being like, I'm gonna, you know, reduce the progress and go backwards a little bit on this, out of fear though, out of fear. Um, and I definitely notice that in myself a lot. Like I can be kind of doubting of myself, but it's kind of interesting. Like sometimes I kind of look at myself through like other people's lenses, and I'm like, the way I see myself, I notice other people don't see myself that way all the time. You know, like I know I've got a brain on me. I just also have a hard time focusing. But the focusing thing is also like a little, I call it a little anxiety based. It's kind of like, okay, I don't really focus that good, but I could focus better. Like, it's just my mind gets a little jumbled on things that when I'm a little stressed about it. And so it's like, I don't really focus as well. Or I distract myself and start doing something else. Or I run out of energy doing all the stuff around it. Like, a simple example is like, okay, I want to do, I have goal A and goal B to reach today with like writing and recording, for example. And then it's like, okay, but I want to clean my room and clean up my space, and put away some clean laundry that I never fully folded, and like, clean up the floors and clean up the bathroom. And like, okay, by the time I'm done cleaning all this stuff, I'm not going to have any energy to do all the other stuff. And so it's like, and I know myself, but then it's like I start thinking more about that. It's like, I really want to clean all this other stuff, or I've been in the house all these days. I want to go run all these other errands, go get my car washed, go, clean out my car on the inside, do this, do that, and it's like, okay, like that's not a necessity, like, how's that going to get in the way of what I'm currently doing? It's definitely going to get in the way of what I'm currently trying to do. But so one thing that kind of helps me with that, and I'm kind of going off on this weird tangent, but one thing that kind of helps me with that is, not being at the house, like if I go to a coffee shop or the library and I just have my laptop and it's charged, because last time I went it wasn't charged and it was at like 2%. I'm like, yeah, but yeah, if it's charged, and yeah, but yeah, if I have it and it's charged and I'm ready to roll, um, that should be fine, like I've got my charged device, and I can work on some music, I can write up some stuff, I can just work on my things, and to me that's definitely worth it. And I mentioned how often I was kind of sticking around the house, and I mentioned before how I've been feeling pretty irritable, for no reason almost, but that has kind of passed. Like, I've noticed since about the last time I went snowboarding and then went to San Diego the following weekend, up to like, I think it was like March 27th or so, I did notice I've started feeling better. I don't know what that was all about, but I think I kind of hit the mark with like this healing process. Maybe it was like the exercise, the music, the social interactions with my friends. Just because I really have had a lengthy break by this time, and um, just trying to be like, you know, um, um, like I've definitely seen some improvements in my health in that way. Like, it might seem like a little thing, but I'm like, okay, I've definitely slept better. I mean, I wouldn't count these days with the cold, and even the other days when I was staying up strange hours before this rave. Um, and the rave was great. I had a good time. Um, but staying up strange hours like that, and um, like before that, my sleep was fine pretty much. But I kind of screwed up my sleep patterns and then got sick. I don't know if that was even related. Maybe it was. I don't really know. Um, I still blame the dust. I don't really know. I honestly don't know. But anyways, up to about page 54 or so. I might be off on the pages, honestly, because I don't know. I might be a couple pages off. Um, I might be good, but I might be a couple pages off. But yeah, we finished the chapter. Let's see. We finished the happily unhappy chapter. What I was mostly talking about was the mixed signals chapter, kind of like, which was about like the frequencies, and then coming into this chapter about freeing yourself. It's kind of more about authenticity, of like having authentic reactions, having an authentic lifestyle and social reactions and things like that. And yeah, just living out of authenticity instead of like some other pattern, like um what would it be called, like instead of trying to people please or trying to, you know, go against your own, like for me it would be like going against my own values. Like something that's coming up for me lately is, you know, I'm surrounded by people who enjoy news, like television news channels. Pretty much for me, of all forms of entertainment and media content, that's one of my least favorites. I don't want to go into the whole thing. I'm a big believer in propaganda. Not saying that I think people should spread it, but I'm a big believer in learning about it, knowing about it. When it comes to politics, I know it's there. Um, I prefer to read articles, journalist articles, and news articles from multiple perspectives. One of my most preferred ways to read is kind of like really weird, honestly. Like taking a concept, breaking it down. Like, so say for example, I mean, this Trump situation has been going on, but I don't really want to talk about that. Um, there's been stuff going on about like um, about trans people, LGBT people, drag culture, and I like to take the stories and kind of look at them like parallel. So, for example, taking a story like, okay, there were kids that were taken to drag shows or something like that from like a middle school or something like that, and look at the opposing sides, look at the sides that are pro, but based on different categories. So like one category may say something about like sexualizing kids too young, and then some other category might say, you know, this is not sexualizing them, it is, you know, a form of exposure to a multicultural, you know, subculture, you know, identity of people. You know, it's cultural education about that happens to have some, you know, underlying sexuality concept, you know, involved. Um, but it's cultural. It's cultural education. It's educational. Um, but then the way that either side kind of looks at their story, it's like, you know, you can tell sometimes there's one side that's like spinning a story to to assume that something means something that it doesn't really mean. Like for example, all this stuff I've read about the arguments against, you know, drag shows and all this stuff is kind of like really weird rationale. It's like I don't understand where it's coming from, and I do want to talk more about these topics. I mean, the more I was like laying around being sick, I was like, man, I wonder, you know, you know, if I should do more topics from more of like an activist basis. Like, it's just that I don't really follow the news, so I might not be the best person for that job. But I'm gonna start getting up and cooking some food because my family's awake now. But I hate it now. Everybody's waking up early, but I gotta get ready and get going. But I'll keep recording. My sinuses feel weird. You can probably tell my voice feels weird, but this is good enough for now. I hope I'll be able to get more regulars in